big thing they do
is
this
draft a
offseason
quarterback.
will be drafting a quarterback.
There
We're going
it
to bring
is.
Dane Brugler in 1 sec from The Athletic to help us figure out which quarterback in this upcoming draft is the best fit for the Browns. But as everyone knows, you can tackle all of your NFL action on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if that first $5 bet wins. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to join today. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
You know, with Dane, and we'll bring Dane Brugler in now. That's not Dane. That's not Dane either. Do we not have him?
They'll get him, man.
Steve's texting.
There he is. Dane, you know, it's funny. I believe that, and I really believe this. I'm not being a wise guy. I honestly believe that if I had been the GM for the Browns for the last decade, and I had just used your mock draft rankings, that the Browns would be in better shape right now. 100%. I mean, I don't know what your winning percentage is. My point is, like, if you watch Hard Knocks with Joe Shane, where that guy clearly is an idiot, most of these GMs have no clue what they're doing. And even for the smartest guys, GMs, guys like you who do this, there's a lot of guessing, right? It's an educated guess, but it's a lot of guessing. And sometimes these GMs think they're so smart, and most of them aren't. Is that unfair?
This is always going to be more of an art than a science, right? I mean, as much as we try to put analytical models on these things and these different metrics, there is certain things that you just can't measure, especially for a quarterback. Going from the college level to the NFL level, the speed of the game is so different. Now, maybe eventually we'll get there with virtual reality that we'll be able to understand the processing speed of how these guys think, the way they see the field, the way that they dissect everything going on pre and post snap. But look, I feel good about my batting average, but I have as many misses as the next person. And I will say that I'm an Andrew Berry fan. I think there's a lot of good things going on with that Browns front office. I don't think it matters much when we know that a lot of the strings being pulled are from above them. And that's going to be more of the doubt with this team moving forward than anything else.
Yeah, that's certainly there, no doubt about it. We're all concerned. But ultimately, we don't know who's making the final decisions for sure. And Andrew Berry's got to hold the bag for Okay, we think we might. We think we might. But
yeah.
Ultimately, with the last 5 first-round picks, the Browns have drafted Greg Newsome, who's just a guy, Jedrick Wills, who stinks, Deshaun Watson, and Deshaun Watson, who stinks. So whoever's to blame, it's been terrible, and it's just crushed the franchise at this point.
Oh, there's no doubt. When you draft a quarterback in the top 10, though, it's not a GM decision; it's an ownership decision.
Sure.
That's with every organization. The Patriots. If it was up to the Patriots last year, I think that they might have gone a different direction. But Kraft wanted a quarterback, so Drake May was the pick. I think every organization's a little bit different, but we know with the Browns that, especially if you have a top 10 pick, the ownership is going to have his thumb on the scale with the way that they're looking at that pick. And it just so happens that trending towards a top 10 pick this year, their first rounder in 3 years, this is not a great quarterback class. It's a quarterback class with a lot of question marks. It's hard to have conviction, positive conviction about this group. Now, Cam Ward from Miami has a ton of upside. Shedeur Sanders has maybe the best floor of the group. You feel good about him as a quarterback, but there's some question marks there. There's not one quarterback in this class that you can point to and say, oh yeah, we'll draft him top 10 and he instantly makes us a better organization. Where at this time last year, Caleb, you were ready to say that about Caleb. You were ready to say that about Drake May, Jaden Daniels. This year, it's just a much different quarterback class.
Dan, you're always on the money when it comes to a lot of these
projections and things like that. Outside of the fact that you didn't have me as a first-round pick, but that
I was waiting for that to come up.
That's another story there. Is there any of those quarterbacks on that you would suggest should go back to college for another year because they just haven't developed quite the same that you thought they would?
Yeah, I think some of these guys are seniors. Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, like we mentioned. But of the underclassmen, Garrett Nussmeier from LSU, who a lot of scouts believe is a first-round pick. He has 10 starts on his resume. He needs to go back, get more experience. None of these quarterbacks will have better information about their draft projection than Nussmeier, his dad being a longtime NFL coach, currently the quarterback coach with the Eagles. But the way the ball comes off his hands, the way he moves around the pocket, the way he sees the field, he has a chance to be an NFL starter. But I think he'd be really wise to go back to school. Same thing with Drew Allar at Penn State. If I'm Drew, I'm going to James Franklin and saying, hey, use some of that NIL money, go get me some receivers, and I'll come back for my senior year. And if he does that, then Penn State might be cooking on offense next year. They're going to lose Tyler Warren, going to lose at least one of those running backs. But if in NIL culture, NIL world in college football, you can really go and hit the open market and get better on offense. And so if I'm Allar, I'm coming back. But as long as the coaching staff and the Penn State organization, they commit to getting better around me.
Do you think that the NIL, Dane, what's up, buddy? I haven't talked to you in a while, man. Good to see you.
It does.
Do you think the NIL could potentially help the NFL in terms of these quarterbacks staying longer? You pointed that out. With that being said, we'll see quarterbacks stay longer, come to the league, maybe more ready, as opposed to guys who come out way too early and get overdrafted and then end up essentially failing in the NFL.
Yeah, because obviously the main reason guys bolt early is to get paid early, to get on that clock so you can hit that second contract earlier. But if you have millions of dollars to stay in school, all of a sudden that decision becomes a lot tougher. And, you have a chance to develop and do what's best for your long term and not necessarily thinking just about the short term. So, yeah, I think, Jalen Milroe from Alabama will have one of those tough decisions coming up here. He's has one more year of eligibility after this year. He could go to the NFL. Maybe he's a first-round pick, maybe more likely a second-round pick. But if he goes back to Alabama, gets better as a passer, his ball placement improves, all of a sudden we're talking about him as maybe a top 10 pick at this time next year. So I think that, we've seen with Anthony Richardson and some of these other quarterbacks, the NFL just is not a developmental league. They've done a very poor job developing these quarterbacks. Some of them just aren't ready. But with NIL and even the transfer portal being able to start right away at these new places, I think that's going to help a lot of these players. I mean, you look at Jaden Daniels. If Jaden Daniels went to the NFL after his third season at Arizona State, he would have been probably a fifth-round pick. Who knows what he's doing now? Instead, he goes to LSU, spends 5 years as a starter at the college level, and all of a sudden, he's much more equipped to handle NFL life, and we're seeing it play out on Sundays. So I think that should be the model for a lot of these quarterbacks. Not all of them will work out like Jaden Daniels, but the more time you have in college to get better, it is going to be advantageous. Now, I will say the flip side of that is you look at Carson Beck this year. Last year, if he comes out, he might be in that first-round discussion. Before Bo Nix, after Bo Nix, he would have been in that first-round discussion. Instead, he takes the NIL money. He has a Lamborghini. Comes back for his final year at Georgia, and he's played
been great, Dane.
below average.
It hadn't been great, but
if the draft's tomorrow, he's probably a third rounder at best. Agreed. At best. So that's kind of the flip side of this. It's maybe not great for the kid, but it's good for teams who are seeing a different side of Carson Beck with a lesser offensive line, no Brock Bowers, and all of a sudden some of those concerns that you had last year are being amplified.
I'd also be concerned that he's a dumbass for buying a Lamborghini.
He probably got a deal with a dealership. Dude.
I don't think he bought it.
Buying that. He's getting a freaking lease for free.
So let me tell you.
Free Lamborghini? Come on.
So this is where I'm going to go with it. This is a perfect segue. See, the thing that Bull just did right there, Bull represents, I don't want to say he represents all the culture that is Northeast Ohio, but we've been told that our ball players need to have the same attitude and personality we have. We're hardworking. We're gonna
I
work
don't agree
hard.
with that, actually.
We're gonna you're not on Instagram. We don't want to see your jewelry. We don't want to see your dances. We want you to be Nick Chubb at the quarterback position, hand the ball to the referee. I try to tell him that whole era is over. Now, look, these guys got Lamborghinis. Shedeur Sanders, to me, I would take Shedeur Sanders. I would bet on him more than anybody in the draft. Here's the problem. Culturally, I just don't think it fits in Cleveland. You go back to Johnny Manziel, we had a problem. You go back to Odell Beckham Jr., had a problem. You just had Deshaun Watson.
Well, to be fair, Johnny Manziel's a bum. But that's different than Odell.
But no, what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
What we talked about with Johnny was the money signs, the doing the extra stuff. Odell wearing the watch on the field. Guys not. We want somebody that is going to be a traditional quarterback that's going to sit there, throw the ball, deliver it, be a CEO type guy. I just don't think that our fan base is willing to have Coach Prime be talking about Shedeur Sanders at the bye week if your team is 2-4. I don't think it's going to work.
If you're 2-4, I think you're right. But winning cures everything. And
That's right.
if the quarterback wins, it doesn't really matter. I don't think this fan base will embrace anybody who is going to help the team win. I don't think it matters background that they come from, the way they conduct themselves. I think your overall point is pretty spot on. I mean, you look at like a guy like Joe Burrow. Nobody works harder than that guy, but he has his own flair. He carries himself a certain way. But you know what? It doesn't really matter. He wins. And so I think when you look at the quarterback position, you look at Shedeur, Dion is going to have his say in how this whole thing plays out, which is just another part of the conversation that's hard to figure out at this point. My biggest issue with Shedeur is he just doesn't have the top tier traits that I want in a quarterback. He reminds me a lot of Jordan Love, but Jordan Love without the high end traits. So instead of Jordan Love is an A+ arm, Shedeur has a B arm. Jordan Love's a big guy physically. Shedeur is 6'1", maybe 210 on his best day. So he's a smaller guy, average arm, and he's not his dad in terms of athleticism. And so I think he's smart. I think he's poised. I think he's accurate. Those things will work. I think he can start in the league. But talking about taking a player top 10 in the draft, I need more out of my quarterback. And so Shedeur, I think there are some things that are going to translate. There's also some things that really scare me about him, the way he manages the pocket. I mean, we'll talk about the offensive line at Colorado a lot. A lot of those quarterbacks or a lot of those sacks are on the quarterback because he's just backpedaling. He's 11 yards past the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's welcoming that contact. And so his struggles managing the pocket and then the average physical traits, that's what kind of worries me about Shedeur as he goes to the NFL. He's going to need the right situation, and I'm not sure Cleveland's going to be it.
Fans often scream, and media members do too. You got to take a quarter. You need a quarterback. You got to take a quarterback. I always think that's a stupid, and teams do that sometimes, as we see guys get overdrafted all the time. Just because you need a quarterback doesn't mean there's going to be a quarterback that fills your need. If you take the wrong guy, you're still going to need a quarterback, so it's stupid. That being said, if the Browns had to take a quarterback, who fits this system? Who fits Kevin Stefanski, if it's still going to be Kevin Stefanski, the best if you had to choose?
I care less about fit and more about who's just going to have the greatest impact. I think we can get caught up too much with fit, and because Kevin Stefanski, one of the things I really like about him as a coach is how diverse he is with his thinking, with his offense. He will really use that offense and shape it around his quarterback, whoever it is. So give me the best quarterback, and I trust. That's why Kevin Stefanski is my coach, is because I know that he can shape his offense around my quarterback. And so if I had a bet on a quarterback in this class, it would be Cam Ward. He has the highest upside of this class. And I'm encouraged by the progress he showed. He was a wing T quarterback in high school, goes to Incarnate Word, FCS. It's strict air raid, goes to Washington State, strict air raid, going to Miami this past year, a little more variation in what they're doing this year. You love the arm strength, the arm talent. You love how elusive he is in the pocket. And all the character reviews are off the charts. Smart, he's an intelligent guy, leadership is great, confident player. So I'm going to bet on those traits and the fact that I think he's getting better and better, even though I would love for him not to see the field right away in the NFL. But if I had to bet on one of these quarterbacks, it's Cam Ward. But I think your overall point is right. You look at the Steelers a couple years ago, was a terrible quarterback class, and they still took one in Kenny Pickett in the first round. Obviously, that went south pretty quickly. So I think you don't force the issue. If you love one of these quarterbacks, pull the trigger, take them in the top 10. If you don't, there's plenty of good players in this draft. Get better, make your roster better, and just move on to a different option at quarterback.
You know, Dane, I got to ask you about a guy. I got to go down to Columbus because I got to ask about my Buckeyes. Now, there's a guy out there that's really killing it. Now, he's not draft eligible. His name is Jeremiah Smith. If he was draft eligible, would he be the number 1 wide receiver in this upcoming draft?
He might be the number 1 overall pick. I mean, plain and simple. It would be a debate. We'd be debating right now Travis Hunter and J.J. Smith. I mean, what J.J.'s doing at that age is just remarkable. His size, his speed, his strength, the way he frames the football, his ability to slow down the catch point, it's phenomenal. So I know that sounds hyperbolic, but it's the truth. I mean, that's how we would be talking about this player. And Travis Hunter, to me, is the number 1 prospect in this draft out of Colorado. Whether you like him at corner or wide receiver, he would be that. He's the number 1 guy. But Smith would certainly be making a case because of everything he brings to the field. If you were in last year's class, I think he would have been ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr., ahead of Malik Neighbors. He is that good as a prospect.
Even over Ryan Williams, the freshman at Alabama.
He's just more physically developed. You know, I mean, Williams he looks awesome, but he's also looks like he's 185 pounds soaking wet. So you take a guy like Smith, who is already put together and already, where he is in his development. And yeah, I think I'll put it this way: Caleb Downs and J.J. Smith. Ohio State has a chance to set a record this year with draft picks. The record's 15. They have at least a chance to match that, if not surpass it. And their 2 best players, who would be the first 2 players drafted from Ohio State this year, aren't even draft eligible with Smith and Downs. So it's pretty crazy.
That is nuts.
The Bucks.
Yeah.
Y'all should win all championships. What are you doing?
That's right. Dane, back to Travis Hunter for a minute. I think he could definitely play and start at either position in the league. Haven't really seen a player play both sides of the ball consistently. I can't remember ever, at least in my lifetime.
Modern life,
consistently.
Troy Brown
maybe
did
a couple of
bit.
plays here and there,
Yeah.
but nothing like consistent like he's doing now. What do you think they do? Or will a team use him on both sides potentially?
It's hard to see it, right? I mean, I just don't know if a coaching staff would even let it happen because you risk injury and just all the one thing we need to give Travis Hunter a lot of credit because you have to be a super athlete, but just the time commitment. I don't think he gets enough credit for how intelligent this guy is for spending his week in the DB room, in the wide receiver room. He plays some special teams too. So he has to know so much of the playbook and under so much of the verbiage. And so not just superhuman in terms of the athleticism, but the intelligence that it takes, the football IQ. So he deserves a lot of credit for that. I mean, Champ Bailey had a handful of catches in the NFL. Obviously, Dion did it a little bit, but Dion's impact was more special teams and defense. We've never really seen a two-way player, offense and defense like this before. And if I'm an NFL team, I'm telling Travis, hey, we're going to start you at corner. You're going to – because in the NFL, there's no such thing as having 2 primary positions. You have a primary position, secondary position. Your primary position is going to be corner. Your secondary position is going to be receiver. We'll try to get you 15 snaps a game maybe at receiver or on offense and see what we can make happen, but we want you to focus on defense. Hopefully he's open to that. I think that what he wants to do is a big part of this conversation as well. But once we get to the draft process, I think that'll all figure itself out.
Man, I think, Shohei Ohtani is a case where if you got somebody special, just let them be special. I'll see how it works. If I was him, I would push to do it. I've never seen a kid like that. But I do want to say, look at this from a situation with the Cleveland Browns. This is a little tough because you're looking at the quarterback position right now. You got Jameis Winston, who can, I don't know if you're going to be a stopgap. You got a DTR. Obviously, Deshaun Watson is coming off some level of an Achilles tear. You just talked about, the quarterbacks in this draft. If you're the Cleveland Browns, it's not looking like you're going to get a significant upgrade at quarterback. Obviously, if Cam Ward goes first overall, there's a lot of teams that are playing terrible right now. The Browns have to lose a lot more games for them to find themselves in a top 5 position to even take a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward. If you are them, do you look at a Sam Darnold? Do you look at a Justin Fields? Are you looking at a stopgap and try to fill in some of the holes in other places? Because right now, it looks like there ain't no readily easy available upgrade at quarterback.
Yeah, and they might not have a choice. If they finish picking 6 overall, are you really going to trade 6 overall and other draft picks to go up to 1 or 2 to get one of these quarterbacks? I highly doubt it. And so, if one of these quarterbacks is there at 6 and you love them, you believe in them, okay, roll the dice, see what you got. But I think there's a better chance that this team looks at, okay, hey, let's add another explosive weapon to our offense. Luther Burden, Missouri. Okay, that makes sense. Let's get better on the offensive line. Let's get a Will Campbell from LSU, a guy who can play tackle, can play guard. All right, let's get better on the offensive line. One of these corners, whether it's Will Campbell or Will Johnson from Michigan, Travis Hunter from Colorado, there will be a lot of other options besides quarterback. The Browns are not in an enviable spot right now in terms of figuring out the quarterback spot. And this is the domino effect of the trade and the decision to go with Deshaun Watson.
No doubt. Dane, great stuff, great insight. We'll look forward to bringing you back again a couple of times. Unfortunately, we're back to the days of talking Browns draft in November. We thought those days might be gone for a while, but they are back. Thank you, Dane. Keep up the great work.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.